You're listening to the Bulldog Hour, getting you inside the Wilson football program with weekly game previews, recaps, highlights, and interviews. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and Justin Raffauf.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Bulldog Hour. I am one of your hosts, Joe Mays. Here with me, as always, is my co-host, Justin Raffauf.
Yeah, it's great to be here. And hey, bonus Bulldog Hour shows.
That's right.
Yeah, we gotta love it.
Nothing was guaranteed after our Game 10 concluded. Of course, Wilson came out on top, winning Lancaster-Lebanon League Section 1, 9-1 on the season. Got a bye for the first round of the District 3 6A playoffs. Did not have a game last week on November 1st. Got to rest and relax and have a nice team dinner paid for by Coach Doms at Shady Maple, which I'll be heading to this week as an end-of-the-year celebration, courtesy Mike Drago Sports.
Hey,
so I'm looking forward to that.
But hey, I don't think there'll be live music there, though.
Thank the Lord.
Dude, live music is the best.
Live music is awful. Awful. What a terrible time. We were so old, which we were having a discussion about before we had started the show anyways,
Dude,
Justin.
So many. And last night, sat down with friends, and the topic of conversation was like popular Christmas tree brands.
Yeah, well, you know, we're in that season, Justin.
Well, yeah, you're always in that season.
You know, Natalie was athletic trainer for a day again.
Yeah,
won the Wilson Education Foundation Silent Auction Prize, and we set it up so she could shadow Kieran, Kyle, Cammie, and the rest of the Wilson Sports Medicine staff. And I know at least one of the players was listening to Christmas music, and that started a discussion that I find out that Kieran is not ready for Christmas yet. She is a staunch advocate of waiting for Thanksgiving.
So I have shifted, and this is your fault. I have shifted from the it must wait till Black Friday, the Friday after Thanksgiving, to hey, do what makes you happy, as long as you give Thanksgiving its due at Thanksgiving time. You know, like enjoy, to me, like the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
That's what
that Friday really ramping it up. But like in terms of like decorating and stuff, like, because I don't know that there's people like full on like celebrating Christmas before Thanksgiving. You know, like it's like in terms of like putting up the decorations. That's like, hey, do what makes you happy, and also. It's probably you, but also like kids, like my kids. If we'd be like, "Hey, do you want to hang up the stuff?" I think they'd be like, "Yeah, let's do it now." So
yeah, Thanksgiving. I love Thanksgiving. It's honestly my favorite holiday of the year is Thanksgiving. And like you said, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That's Thanksgiving. But
so I get made fun of at school. People make fun of me. They're like, "You would like Thanksgiving the most." I'm like, I don't know what that means, but it is the best.
It is the best. Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, that's nothing to take away from Christmas and New Year. Like this entire season, I tell you. September 1st
outside of July
through January 1st is the best time of year. We're right here in the thick of it, ready to celebrate with the best of them. But we're celebrating right now because the Bulldogs keep winning.
Hey,
and that is the most important thing on this show.
Bulldogs into Christmas time. Let's go.
Yeah, if you're practicing in December, you've done something right.
We want a Thanksgiving practice.
Yeah,
we want a Thanksgiving practice.
Wilson will have to win a couple more games for that to be the case. Starting with this coming Friday. The Bulldogs will host Central York, a winner over CD East in one of the other quarterfinals. The Bulldogs obviously beat Cedar Crest. We're going to talk about that. We're going to preview the game against Central York. And hopefully when we're back here 1 week from now, Justin, we are talking about the next Wilson opponent, which would be either Manheim Township or Harrisburg.
Right. Yeah, let's keep it going. You know, we've talked about this, you know, they keep winning, we'll keep doing shows. So
absolutely, you know, our goal is always can we get to 20 shows for a football season? Now, we start shows in February usually. That's like the kickoff for our season. Sometimes we do one in April or June, but this year we only did one early in the year, and then we waited till end of July or early August. But we're already up to, this is episode 16 of season 10 right now.
Right.
So we know we're going to have episode 17 coming up next weekend. Win or lose, that show will happen. Win, we're guaranteed 18. So we're getting awfully close, and it kind of makes me upset that we didn't do one in April and June because we would be ever so close to getting to that 20 show
Someone
marker.
had to go away on the
yeah,
bye week.
just things got messed up. But it's
it's good to be back, and and it's fun knowing that it's fun to keep doing these shows. But the reality is, it's out there. If short of a state title, it ends in heartbreak. You know, like that's the reality
only
of
6
this.
teams across
And
the state that can
half
celebrate.
the playoff teams realize that this week. So.
And we are now, I believe, in the state playoffs now as the semifinals approach in District 3. I believe that's considered PIAA first round.
Okay.
So these are technically state playoff games. I don't ever usually count them until we're not playing a district opponent. I guess that's not how it works by the PIAA, but until we've won a district, I feel like it's not a state playoff game to me.
Right.
But I know statistic-wise, I believe these semifinal and district final games count as PIAA games as well. But so before we recap the win against Cedar Crest, I do want to, as always, take time to thank our sponsors here on the program, presented by, as always, my dad, Bill Mays, and Mays Sandwich Shop. Thank you and appreciate his support over the decade. Justin joining us recently have been Mike Drago Sports, MikeDragoSports.com, and more recently, over the last couple of years, White Star Tours. And do want to take a moment to talk about the unfortunate passing of Ann Kraris, longtime matriarch, family member, big time staple at Wilson sporting events over decades.
I think was very involved with what used to be called the
Mothers Club.
Yeah.
And we also, since our last show, I believe the first president of the Mothers Club passed away, Mrs. Vaughn.
Oh, yes.
So we lost two big important women in the Wilson football. So White Star Tours and the Kraris and Hunsaker families have been mainstays and very supportive of us the last few years as well.
Yeah.
We want to extend our condolences to the Kraris and Hunsaker families for the loss of Ann. And that's why you saw, if you were at the game Friday night, you might have seen people wearing purple ribbons. That was to support Ann in her battle. Unfortunately, she did pass away yesterday. And I believe the viewing will be this coming Thursday.
I think it's Thursday morning, yes.
And you can find that out online. I believe was it Kuhn?
Kuhn Funeral Home in West Reading.
So we extend our sympathies and condolences to the Kraris and Hunsaker families for the loss of Ann. In addition to the Krarises at White Star Tours, again, we want to thank the Miller family, Andy Herr, and our 3 anonymous donors here at the program. Our next live show will be in 1 week on Sunday, November 17th. We will recap the game against Central York and preview whatever the District 3 6A championship will be. And Justin, schedule, I should just throw it out. It should be gone because I don't even have pictures for what's happening right now because the regular season's gone and over with. We have moved on, and we're in the second season. Some teams are 2 games deep across the district. Wilson 1 game in, and it was a good one. It was a rematch, and as we know, Justin, as we talked about, it is very difficult to beat teams twice in a season. Wilson had to tackle the Falcons after probably having their closest call in all of their Section 1 games, because even the township game always felt difficult because you're on the road, you're against a quality opponent, someone that hasn't lost since the last time Wilson beat them, lost to a section team the last time, or maybe even at home in the regular season at least, because I think Township lost to Harrisburg at home last year in the playoffs. But that felt like it was going to be a difficult game. But in reality, the Cedar Crest game, scoreboard-wise, was a closer game.
I kept telling anyone that would listen, and you often, because you just get the brunt of all these things from me. I'm like, I'm telling you, Cedar Crest thinks they should have won that game. I feel like they feel about that regular season matchup like we feel about the Nazareth game. I know they're not identical games, but I'm like, look, we got that goal line stand. I was like, they got the ball in the end zone. Now, there was a flag on the play, and it negated them getting the ball into the end zone. But I'm like, they probably feel as though they let one slip away, because we got that. We scored on a play where they didn't hop on the kickoff. Like, there were all kinds of just weird things in that game. Defense played incredible. We just couldn't get it clicking on offense. The offense wasn't bad in that game. We just couldn't get it clicking. We take 2 steps forward, 1 step back in that game.
Yeah.
But you and I both, before the game, I think we're a little uncomfortable with the fact that we were like, our team is not the team we were even at midpoint in the season. We have found our identity, and I felt confident, which really scares me because I won it, and I think I said to you, I was like, I think this really has the potential to be like the Penn Manor situation 12-ish years ago.
2013.
When we
had the claw and
barely beat them in the regular season and handled them in the playoffs.
Yep.
And that's exactly how it played.
That's exactly what happened. And you and I did talk before the game about we think that this team came into their own once I believe actually they were losing to Mifflin, weren't they, at one point in the first or second quarter?
We might have
down,
been,
I forget what the score was, but when that Mifflin was close in the first half, end of first, early second quarter, I feel like something happened then, and Wilson turned it on and became the team that we're seeing now. And obviously they're undefeated since that point, including the win against Mifflin. And the week before was that Cedar Crest game that maybe that helped wake them up a little bit to say that this isn't going to be a walk in the park after maybe they felt they had overachieved the first bit of the season because of the difficulty of that non-league slate and coming up just short against Nazareth, who they're now playing longer than because Nazareth has already lost and their season is over. I think that was kind of a turning point in the early parts of the game at Mifflin. But you were exactly right about feeling that this felt like the Penn Manor series from 2013, that we had to fight for the regular season victory, but in the playoffs, it never really was in doubt, and that's exactly what happened.
Right, and I think in that Mifflin game too, something that stuck out to me was that there were some bumps in the road early, like you mentioned, and it didn't phase our guys. They didn't get phased. We stuck with the game plan. We didn't, get in our own heads or in our own way. We just were like, nope, we've got this. And they stuck to the plan. Everybody did their job and they handled their business and then some. And they've done that pretty much week in and week out since. Now, and we were talking about this right before the show, it's getting to the point where that margin for error is a lot less each week.
Right.
It's going to keep going down because there are no gimmies left. No. And Cedar Crest wasn't a gimme because we had in part because we had the bye,
Right.
If we would have been playing like years ago when it was maybe still the 4 classifications, if we would have been playing the 15 seed, that can sometimes be a bit of a gimme. But it's not going to be a gimme now. You're in, and you said if not this week, the next week, it starts being when are the, the state playoffs kind of you're starting to eliminate teams in a hurry.
You're in it right now.
You're going to face good teams, and so you got to beat good teams, and that margin for error drops. But it's exciting because they really handled their business against Cedar Crest.
Yeah, they looked really good doing it. So that was great overall effort. Kind of came out and took control immediately. I believe scored on, was it the first 2 offensive series to go up 14-0 quickly?
Yes.
Well, yeah, I'll pull up the stats here and we'll walk through it and recap some of the statistics that we've got here for everyone on the show. If I can find it, there it is. Okay, so the first drive. So Wilson actually kicked off first. Coach Dom's, the staff wanted to use the wind to their advantage.
And to be honest, before the game, I was kind of like, okay, it's windy.
It got worse.
But
as the game
I was
went on.
okay. I was just a little surprised. Not that we deferred, but that we so when we deferred, Cedar Crest picks that they are going to receive. And then when they say they're going to receive, we said we're kicking towards the scoreboard. I was like, oh, because normally teams will kick away from the scoreboard so that they have it in the second quarter or the fourth quarter. But we didn't do that. But yeah, it was a good decision as Christo was booming the ball through the end.
So Christo kicked it 60 yards for a touchback. They started with Jackson Custer, very, very talented football player.
Good.
He threw an incomplete pass to Tirado.
I'm okay seeing him graduate.
He rushed for no gain. He did complete a pass for 17 yards to Warrenavage. Zimmerman, who was held in check all night, got a 3-yard rush. But then Jackson Custer had an incomplete pass. He was then sacked by E.J. Brownback for a loss of 10, resulting in a punt. And it ended up going 30 yards into the wind, but Maddox returned it for 12 yards, and Wilson took over at midfield. It was the Cedar Crest 48. And then they immediately went to the ground game. Carell rushed for 14 yards. Monty Greer picked up 2 yards. Unfortunately, there was a holding penalty, which is still kind of a theme with the Wilson offense. A lot of holding penalties. But Maddox Gruber completed a pass to Jaden Carpenter for 10 yards. Then he hit Mike Glover for 11 yards. Akings rushed for 2 yards. They also
Glover
took advantage.
Was playing like a freight train all night. He'd get the ball, and it was just like guys trying to take him down, and they were not.
No, they
weren't
not.
Even slowing him down half the time.
So they were down to the Cedar Crest 19. Then Crest was called for encroachment, got down to the 14, and on that play, Corell Akings went right side on a great blocking by the offensive line. I know Mike Drago pointed out the great seal block by Jesse Etchberger to spring Corell for the touchdown. Christo's kick was good, so Wilson led 7-0. And then the defense, again, forces a 3-and-out and a punt. And just past midfield this time, the Bulldogs started at their own 41, but then got driven back to the 29 on a personal foul call. So Wilson would need to work a little bit harder this time around, and they went with Maddox first. He rushed for 6 yards, then 12 yards. Corell chipped in 13. Couple plays later, Maddox Gruber connected on 3rd and 9 with Mike Glover for 18 yards. He then hit Mike again on the next play for 12 yards. All of a sudden, it's 1st and goal. Corell gets 8 yards down to the 1, and Corell goes in on the next play for the second touchdown. So it's already 14-0, and it's not even the second quarter. So everything's feeling good in West Lawn. Cedar Crest would have a better drive the next time around. They would move down the field, and into the second quarter, we would get our first Falcons points. They would cut it to 14-3. The big play on that drive was a Jackson Custer rush for 58 yards, which we all thought was going to be a touchdown. Yeah. He got through. There were a little bit of bumping in the first level, but once he cleared the linebackers, he had open space. And we had a few guys that are incredibly fast chasing after him. They were getting close, but then all of a sudden, Jaden Carpenter prayed across the field.
Literally, like, you can't teach it any better. Like, we talk about it a lot with the middle school kids. Pursuit angles. Not just that, but effort, right? Like, oh my gosh. Jaden was the DB on our sideline.
The far side.
He was running
from the play.
On the far right. He's running on the other side, and Jaden crosses the field. So he's running an extra 30, 40 yards, essentially with getting across the field, and manages to track him down and stop him after a long run, but he stopped him short of the end zone. And honestly, it wasn't even like at like the 1 or anything like that. But like he what a huge play. And you don't know that at the time. Like, they may score on the next play, but Jaden saw it and tracked him down and caught it. And the next, I guess, 1, 2, 3, 4, the next 6 plays, essentially, to me, started to put the seal on this game for Wilson.
Because the hustle play saved 4 points.
Right, it's a 4-point tackle.
And 14-3.
4 points purely on hustle and effort.
14-3 sounds way better than 14-7 because it's a 2-possession game. They cannot
Right.
tie or take the lead on a
14-7,
score.
all it takes is one broken play, one freak thing, you never know.
So that was that then flipped the field on that drive because they were facing 3rd and 10 from the 20 before Custer busted up the middle for 58 yards and got to the Wilson 22, but didn't score because of the hustle of Jaden Carpenter. There were a couple other Bulldogs chasing him as well.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely,
getting close to it, but Jaden was the guy that made the play. So Crest kicks the field goal 14-3, and immediately you're texting me, all right, let's have an answer. Let's respond. Well, it took 2 plays for the Bulldogs to score again. Maddox rushed for 5 yards, taking over at the 20. I believe they had the win now. So
they kicked it out of the end zone. Yep.
Maddox rushed for 5 yards, 2nd and 5 from the 25. Corell Akings, for the 3rd time tonight, gets into the end zone. This time it's on a 75-yard rush. He goes to the right side again. Flipping the field, going the other direction, but he goes off to the right side, 75 yards. Great blocking, springing Corell Akings into the open field, 75 yards. He's gone. Hunsaker's kick is good. Wilson leads 21-3, and that's actually where we will sit at halftime. The teams kind of traded possessions back and forth. They each had the ball 2 more times each, but Wilson ran out of time at the end of the second quarter. They were in their own end anyways. They weren't really threatening, but defense played really well. They forced a 3-and-out on that second possession right before halftime from Cedar Crest. But the Bulldogs only had 90 seconds to go and didn't get much going before half. But going into the locker room up 21-3 sounds great to me. It would be the Bulldogs who would get back on the board again before the end of the third quarter. Wilson would start with the ball in the second half, and a promising drive would end at the Cedar Crest 31 on an incomplete pass on 4th and 5. Crest would take over, and the defense mostly shut him down. There was a personal foul that gave him some yardage, but other than that, it was essentially a 3-and-out. The offense didn't gain anything. They ended up at the Wilson 49, but turned the ball over on downs on 4th and 2. The next series, Wilson would have the ball, and it would be Akings, and then Gruber breaking one to make it 28-3. I believe this was after.
Yes, it was.
His punt return touchdown was nullified because of a penalty. So Maddox showed us his athleticism on a 44-yard touchdown on 3rd and 3 from the Crest 44, and that felt like it put the game away at that point, Justin. It was 28-3.
Yeah.
There was still 3 minutes to go in the third, but the Crest offense hadn't done anything the whole night outside of that one Custer run.
Short of the one Custer run. Yep.
So we go into the fourth quarter, and the team just trade drives. No one got a lot going early. Crest went 3-and-out.
As you mentioned, the wind by this point in the game is
really
whipping.
strong. Yeah.
There were literally dust clouds coming across the field.
The Bulldogs did take over after a fumble was recovered by E.J. Brownback at the Crest 33, but the Bulldogs didn't get any points. They used a lot of time, about almost 4 minutes off the clock. Crest got the ball back one more time, ended up fumbling again. This one was recovered by Cam Zulinger. At this point, though, there wasn't a lot of time left. I believe about 90 seconds to go, and because of the situation, Bulldogs started to take a knee. Crest didn't take their timeouts because they knew that with 90 seconds, the odds of scoring 25 points was not in their favor. So they let the game run out, and that was your final score. Wilson wins 28-3. Looking at some stats across the board, Justin, Bulldogs had 20 first downs to Cedar Crest 8. Bulldogs rushed 40 times for 309 yards. They held Cedar Crest to 89 yards on 26 carries. Custer only threw for 50 yards. Wilson threw for 132.
So again, outside of the Township and Wilson games, and their Warwick game where they were out their quarterback and turned it over 7 times.
Yeah.
They put up massive offensive numbers most of the year.
They were the 3rd best team in LL Section 1.
And it wasn't close.
No, they were much better than everyone behind them.
Right. Because much like their regular season game with Hempfield was close, but they won.
They beat them by 20 in the playoffs.
They destroyed them in the playoffs.
49-29. So Total offense, Wilson put up 441 yards to Crest's 139. Crest threw one interception. Oh, no, they did not. Sorry, they had one interception on it. I believe it deflected.
Yeah, the D end tipped it in the air and then caught his own deflection. It was a great play.
Crest fumbled 2 times in the end of the game. Penalties, Cedar Crest only had 2 penalties accepted for 9 yards. Wilson had 8 for 77, so want to clean that up as well. Bulldogs had an edge in possession time, 26-30 to 21-30. Wilson was 5 of 9 on 3rd down, did not convert on 4th down, 0-2, scored 2 out of our 3 times in the red zone, and each team had a sack. So individually speaking, well, we know it was a big night for Wilson rushers. Jackson Custer led the way for the Falcons, though, 62 net yards, and he had a long of 58. So you take away, I know the sacks are counted against him as well, but you take away that one long run, and they held Jackson Custer in check, as they did Isaiah Zimmerman, who is a beast. He gained 18 net yards on 11 carries. Cameron Tirado was their leading receiver, 3 for 20 yards, but he also had a couple drops. And Wilson only gave up 1 reception to Jack Waranovich.
That's crazy.
They held their guys in check all night long. Another great performance by Coach Ernie Walber's defense. Corell Akings led the way for the Bulldogs, but he was getting pushed by his quarterbacks, Maddox Gruber. Akings finished with 164 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. Gruber had 132 and 1 touchdown. Monty Greer also had 18 yards gained on the ground. Maddox was 11 of 15 for 132 yards. Passing, Mike Glover led the way with 5 catches for 63 yards. Monty Greer had 2 for 31. Jaden Carpenter, 2 for 21. And Cam Zulinger, 2 for 17. Even though he only threw 15 passes, he still managed to connect with 4 receivers. So another good outing from Maddox, Gruber, and the Wilson offense. Defensively speaking, it was quite the night for a few Bulldogs. Ethan Harding tied for the team lead in tackles with 5, 2.5 of them for loss. Cam Zulinger was next with 4, 1.5 for loss, and a fumble recovery. Corell Akings and Brady Klein each had 3 tackles. Monty Greer had 2.5 and a pass breakup. Chase Herb had 2 pass breakups. He was flying around and filling on Zimmerman earlier in the game as well. And by and by, Justin, just a very solid performance. Again, a couple individual performers on offense that kind of stole the show. Defensively, it was a great team effort all around. But we do have to give out our Player of the Week award. We've been doing it all season long. And I think everyone is expecting this to go to Mr. Akings, because obviously he had, well, what did I say? 160 some rushing yards and 3 touchdowns, and that's an obvious person to give the award to. Honestly, Corell could get the award nearly every week. Right. Maddox could get the award nearly every week as well. And they both would, if we gave out more, if we gave out helmet stickers like Lancaster Online does, or they would certainly be receiving them. But this week, we've already talked about him a bunch. Unfortunately, I didn't have any pictures of him defensively, and that's where I felt like he stood out this week. But we're going to go with Jaden Carpenter for his performance against Cedar Crest. He's making his name for himself mostly on offense throughout the season, and he had almost a fantastic catch. I have a picture of it. The ground knocked it loose. Yes. But he was very close to setting the Bulldogs up for a touchdown or scoring himself. Just couldn't quite pull in the catch. It got bumped loose as he came to the ground. But man, it was an amazing leaping attempt at the grab. But we already talked about his contributions on defense this weekend. And I just said their main receivers, their dangerous guys, did very little. Tirado and Waranovich combined for 4 catches for 37 yards. And obviously Jaden had that incredible like DK Metcalf rundown of
Right. So and the thing about that, and I mentioned it there, but then I didn't really, I mean, you went through the plays, but he hustles and makes that play. And again, he wasn't the only one hustling. I don't want to make it sound like other guys had given up. That wasn't it. But he just happened to be the guy that tracks him down. But that's pure effort from across the field. He makes that tackle. We hold him to a field goal. 14-3 is better than 14-7, like you mentioned. And then 2 plays later, we make it 21-3.
Right.
Instead of 14-7.
Huge.
That's a huge, huge play. And so it just, it's hard to quantify in the stats. And like you said, there's other guys, and they Carell's stats in the game were just outstanding and fantastic. And the offense, and you'll hear from them in a little bit, the offense kind of talks about that, but they also talk about Jaden, right. And so it was well deserved, and just like one of those things where he was he made a lot of plays, and some of it shows up in the stats, but also like some of them they all look the same, but they're not all the same, like in that play, that one tackle isn't equal to every tackle, like that one tackle was huge in that play, kind of set the tone, not just from him, but for the team, of just the level and effort they're giving right now. And the way they just don't give up on any play, and they just go like that play kind of like encapsulates like the way this team is going right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So congratulations to Jaden. Heck of a game from a variety of guys, many guys. Offensive line, great game from them. Obviously, Maddox and Carell, fantastic performances once again. Just a lot of places we could have gone with this, but I think that I feel like that play defined the game and really the season. Never giving up, hustle, determination. That was great. So congratulations to Jaden. Congratulations to the team and the coaches for win number 10 on the season. Moving on
fun.
and
Double digits.
Playing another home game. Hosting. How big is that win at Township now? We don't have to go to York.
Right. We'd be going to Central York this week if we had lost that game.
So, yeah, this is great. I
don't think we would have dropped to 4. Did you run that? Like,
I never did.
Okay.
I never did.
Just reminds me a few years ago when we were like, oh, we beat Township, we're in, we lose, we might still be in, but the way it worked out, we wouldn't have been in without it.
Yeah. Because we ended up, weren't we 7th or something like that? And we would have been out with a loss, or maybe even 6th. I forget what it was. And then just went to the district championship.
Details.
Yeah, details. But so let's finalize our win versus Cedar Crest and move on to a preview of playoff game number 2 for the Bulldogs in the District 3 6A semifinals now, and it's going to be a somewhat familiar.
Do you want to do the interview?
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
Sorry,
Thank you for I'm glad. Thank you for reminding me of that. I am going to pull that up right now. So before we get to Central York, one last thing about Cedar Crest. We did catch up with a few Bulldogs after the game. It's about 2 or 3 minutes long. We'll play that for you now. Again, remember, it was very windy, so I apologize. It's going to be you're going to hear the breeze blowing through the microphone. But let's talk to the handful of Bulldogs about the victory over Cedar Crest.
All right, joining us now post-game are 5 Wilson Bulldogs who have emerged victorious in their quarterfinal matchup against Cedar Crest, 28-3. Leading the way tonight was the ground game. Carell and Akings, Maddox combined for 296 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. Carell's here with us tonight. What were you thinking of that, man? You got that 75-yard touchdown run to cap it off. You had 3 in the first half. Did the game plan call for the ground attack against the Falcons tonight? Well, a few of the blockers here, some outside help. Our tight end group once again. This has got to be a record for a position group to join us post-game. I feel like we talk to you every other week, but there's a reason for that, because you guys have been the heart of this team. Offensively, all of you out there contributing defensively. What's it like to get a playoff victory?
I mean, this is our first playoff win since my freshman year. This is the first time that we've had a home playoff game since I've been here. And it's so special to go out here in front of our home fans and do what we did.
You know, we get held to the highest of high standards by Zerby, and to see all the work we put in pay off, all the time we spend together, we all make each other better each and every day in practice. Seeing it all pay off, whether it's blocking, catching the ball.
Mike Oliver was the leading receiver tonight, 5 catches for 63 yards. Good to see Mike getting involved again. Mike, talk to us about your relationship with Maddox.
You know, it's great, man.
Maddox, new QB, played wide receiver. You know, we just come out, we know we got a connection. You know, he can get the ball to me, and I'm going to make plays for him. So, you know, it's a great connection. You know, we're going to keep on showing what we can do.
We didn't get to grab him, but when we were trying to talk to some players here afterwards, it was mentioned that we should grab Jaden Carpenter. He stepped up in a big way tonight, actually led the team, or tied for the team lead in tackles at 5. He's played sparingly at quarterback, but tonight was a big night for him defensively. Talk to us about Jaden's contributions to the team this year.
You know, we see it every day in practice. He works so hard, and it's all about staying ready, and that's exactly what he does, and that's exactly what he did tonight. He was ready to go when his number was called, whether that was on offense, defense, no matter where it was, he was ready.
And without Carp, they made that a 14-10 game at one point. That you don't know what that'll do to momentum. And he made a huge play, chased the kid down, got him from behind.
He does his job in everything that he does. If he's got a guy coming at him on defense, he'll make the tackle. So that's what he's real good at.
All right, guys, well, I don't have much else to ask. Congratulations on the victory. Home playoff victory, like Brady said, kind of a big deal for this group of guys. You get another home game next week. I'm guessing it's going to be against Central York, who Wilson hasn't played since the nice run in 2021 that Brady remembers quite fondly. So congratulations again, and hopefully we can talk to you all next week after the game against Central York.
Thank you.
All right, so we caught up with a handful of Bulldogs there, and moving on now. Moving on to Central York, because it's a big time battle. It's one of the better teams in District 3-6A. I think the top 4 seeds all made the semis, right?
Yeah, it has been.
Yeah, so it's
in that round it was chalk.
Yeah,
And it was chalk in the other one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe so. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll pull it up here right now while we talk. But because Cumberland Valley beat Mifflin, that was 8-9, and Cedar Crest beat Hempfield, that was 7-10.
So it has all been chalk so far.
It's all the way through. So
I'm okay if chalk holds this week.
Right, chalk can hold this week. That's fine, because that means we would be playing Manheim Township somewhere. All that matters is that the 2 seed wins. That's what we want. And Wilson will host Central York, who is
Which
9.
I don't know. Someone posted in their article. It might have been Drago, about how the 1 seed has only won once. I think. Has not won very often in 6A. I'd be okay with that this year too.
Yeah, that's fine with me. So it will be Harrisburg traveling to Manheim Township Friday at 7. That's a rematch of last year's district championship game that Harrisburg won in crazy fashion, an upset.
I think it was overtime.
It was, I believe,
and a wild game. I was watching.
I think
online.
Township was up
crazy.
by 2 touchdowns or something in the second half.
And they came storming back, and it was wild.
Yeah, they ended up losing to the Cougars, so Township will have another shot at Harrisburg at Township. Township squeaked by Cumberland Valley. They won 14-7, but Cumberland Valley had the ball at the Township 15 with 40 seconds to play, and on the last play of the game, the Blue Streak intercepted the Eagles to preserve their victory. Central York got by Central Dauphin East with ease, 47-14. So we know the Central York team is very talented. They have a high-performing, spread-it-out, air raid style offense. They have been blowing through opponents. However, I don't want to take anything away from CDEs, because they started the season 7-0, but then finished with 4 straight losses. When they got up against a good team, they weren't able to handle it. Outside of CD East, Central York has played what I would consider maybe 3 talented teams this year, and they lost 2 of those games. They lost at Manheim Township in game 2, 28-10, and they lost on October 18th on a non-PIAA game. This game did not count in the power ratings against Ohio Mammoth Archbishop Hoban. They lost 41-7.
Yeah, I actually got some just real quick info on Bishop Hoban. I texted a buddy from Northeast Ohio. He's like, "Oh man, they used to be in our division." He said some things I won't say till after the show. But he said in the mid-2000s they became a powerhouse. They've really opened up recruiting. They recruit heavily out of Akron and Cleveland. So Ohio football is a different level. at least back when I was in school with this buddy, there was open enrollment. You could go wherever and play wherever. And so like that's just the way it was. He's their Division II, which would be like 5A in Pennsylvania. Their top level is Division I. Like, and so they're kind of reversed order of ours. But then they used to be 3, but they've moved up based on the amount of state titles. So
it makes sense.
Yes, they're very good. Factory, he said they consistently produce Ohio State and Big Ten recruits.
Of course.
So
essentially like the St. Joe's Prep of Ohio, or one of them.
Yeah. So it sounds like they're one of those schools where, like, yes, Central York got handled by them, but like that's not on Central York so much. Like this is
no, that was not.
This was we need it.
demeaning-
We won a 10th game, and it's there. So like, yeah, you may see that, but don't read too much into that one. I would look at the other 9 more than that one.
Outside of the non-league games that they lost, they breezed through their York Adams League opponents. The only one that was close was an overtime victory at the end of September at Dallastown. They won that game 28-27. Dallastown was the 5 seed in the District 3 6A playoffs. They just lost on yesterday to Harrisburg. I think it was 42-6.
Yeah,
I want to say. Now they kept it close early.
Right.
They kept Harrisburg down, but once Harrisburg got moving, they couldn't stop them. So
and we've seen that movie
happens
before.
Pretty often. So.
So that movie has a regular showing in November.
Yeah. So Central York's 9-2 on the season. Here, let me pull up. I'll put up the scores up on the board for everyone to see if I can move this around. So that
But yeah, Central York's gonna put up. It's a step up. They're gonna have more weapons than Cedar Crest had this past week. I know Cedar Crest has some really good ones. And some young ones that will be back. But they weren't able to kind of get it rolling. I know just in hearing, and this was not from Wilson people, this was from other people who were at the 7-on-7 stuff that we've talked to this summer at Wilson. Central York looks really good at the 7-on-7. They've got skill guys all over the place.
Yeah.
Where, Cedar Crest was more, they've got, the kid out wide, and
they had a
they've
mixture.
got the running backs, but like they're going to kind of more take their 1 or 2 guys and kind of beat you with those guys, and it was very successful for them for a lot of the season. There's a lot of weapons on this Central York team,
right? And let's dive into that now. And talk about some of these individual players that you're going to be hearing about on Friday night, starting with their quarterback, Brooklyn Nace. He is a junior, putting up some good numbers for them this season to date. I don't believe their most recent game was included on here. I think this is just their regular season. So their playoff game, the stats were not updated. But he has played in all 10 games for the Panthers. He has 154 completions, 2,010 passing yards. He averages over 200 yards per game. He's thrown 26 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. However, 2 of those interceptions, Justin, were against Archbishop Hoban. So if you take out that game, he has a pretty solid...
If you count their stats like you do power rankings, where that game doesn't count,
he would look even better. So he is a dangerous player in the backfield. And like I said, they run a spread, air raid style, quick passes. They want to play 7-on-7. That's what they want to do. He averages only about 5 carries a game. This is not a zone read. This isn't a big-time athlete that's going to carry the ball 10, 15 times a game and make you miss. He's rushed for 122 yards and 2 touchdowns on the season, so he likes to throw it. The offense runs through his arm. Because they have a nice running back. He is young. He's only a sophomore. His name is Legend Johnson, but he only averages 51 yards rushing per game. So he only gets about 9 to 10 carries, but he does average about 5 yards per carry. But again, they are going to want to throw the ball. That is what they're going to do on offense.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's a different situation for them. It's a different situation for us. But a few years ago when we went there in the playoffs, our offense was we're going to run, and run some more. Right? That was we're going to run with Brad. We're going to run with Jaden. That was our offense, and it was effective. Right? Like we really had found the way we were going to do things, and the way that worked was driving their sideline.
They couldn't stop us.
Like, and by sideline, I don't mean on the field. I mean because I was on top of their press box.
Their fans, they didn't know what to do.
Were beside themselves. They're like, "Don't they ever do anything other than run?" And I'm like, "Make us do something other than run." Like,
That's always so funny to me. Those comments.
Right.
You stop us.
Yeah. Exactly.
So their leading receiver is Brendan Smith. I believe he is also a junior. He has 55 receptions for 851 yards and 11 touchdowns. So he's the guy. He's going to get the ball at least 5 to 6 times a game, and he's going to be targeted more than that. He is making things happen. He's catching, or he's putting up 85 yards per game, averaging a touchdown per game. So he's a guy that is going to need to be stopped. He wears number 13 for Central York. So that's the guy that needs to be brought down. That's who Brooklyn Nace wants to throw to, is Brendan Smith. We have heard that they're not entirely physical up front, that they can possibly be beat along the line, which is a good thing for us because our line has done very good this year, especially defensively, of disrupting teams that want to run the ball. Plymouth Whitemarsh, Manheim Township. Bulldogs looked very good shutting down big offensive linemen, experienced offensive linemen, or big-time running backs.
Yeah, and, I mean, it's hard to say because we haven't seen them, but, they've put up some big numbers. Like you said, they blew through so much of their schedule. Dallastown was one there they didn't. You look at, common opponents. Is Township's the only common opponent, right? Is Township the only common one?
Yes.
So Township's the only common opponent. Township beat them, but that was week 2? A lot happens since then. But we know that one of Township's strengths is their line. They had returned so many, especially early in the season. And they love to give the ball to Clancy, who, was, I'm sure a force. But that has been. I just look at, for us this past week, that was our strength, right? We controlled the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. That's going to need to be, and it sounds so cliche, but listen, cliches end up as cliches because they're said so often, right?
Because it's important.
Right.
It
You need to control the offensive line. We need to be able to run. We need to be able to protect Maddox. And we need to be able to establish a line of scrimmage and not let them run, even though they don't want to run often, be disruptive up front, make the quarterback get the ball out of his hands earlier than he wants to. That type of thing is kind of what needs to be done.
Absolutely. So Brooklyn Nace, the quarterback, I said, is a junior. He is a very good athlete. He helped Central York win the state championship in basketball.
Yeah.
But he wants to throw more often than run. But he absolutely can. He certainly can make you miss in the open field, but his first read is going to be the pass at all times. They have a variety of other backs, but like I said, sophomore Legend Johnson is the one who's kind of stepped up in that backfield and has been leading the way. They only returned 6 starters on offense and 5 on defense, so they are, throughout this season, have been breaking in some new people to positions, but it went pretty well for them. Other than the setback to Manheim Township and then the non-PIAA game against Archbishop Hoban, they were very strong, going 9-0 in their other games.
Right.
So they bring a lot of good talented players coming to Gursky on Friday. They have 3 guys that are Division I college commits. Sukanik is going to UConn, Ramnath to Monmouth, and Matthew Parker to Penn State as a preferred walk-on, joining former Central York quarterback Bo Pribula, who you already mentioned. Wilson was able to stop and end his high school career 3 years ago.
Hey, but like we've said many a time, once he moved on from Central York, from the time that field goal missed at Central York that night, I've been a big Bo fan.
Okay, so I think that's about it. A lot of good players on this team for Central York.
Lots of talent all over the place.
And obviously, like you mentioned, they're going to be ready to return the favor after we went to them as a lower seed and upset them.
And no one really everybody was like, oh, everybody was kind of putting them in Harrisburg. Everybody wanted to see them in Harrisburg the next week. And
so they are trying to get over the hump now of losing 3 consecutive seasons in the semifinals. They wanted to get back. They won in the weird COVID year. They ended up winning the district championship over their rival York William Penn because Central York blew out Central Dauphin and York William Penn didn't have to play Harrisburg because they dropped because of COVID issues. Central York went on to destroy York William Penn. I believe they won the next game. I forget who it was against. Must have been a Whippeal team, though.
Yeah.
Because they ended up trying to go toe-to-toe with, I believe, St. Joe's Prep in the state championship game and fell short. That was in 2020. But then Wilson beat him in 2021. And then in 2022 and 2023, our old pals, the Harrisburg Cougars, ended Central York's season. Last year was by just a touchdown, 28-21. Central York at the time had Jules Goff in the backfield. He is not there this year, but Brooklyn Nace is in his second year as a starter, and he's still only a junior. So Jerry Onchik is in his 5th season with the Panthers and is now 51-7 through Friday night's game. They've been doing really well under his tutelage, so we'll get to see them up close and personal Friday night at Gursky. And again, you will have to buy your tickets ahead of time. I mean, you can technically buy them at the gate, but you got to do it on your phone.
Right.
They're not selling tickets at the gate.
And
so
you can say what you want. That is a District 3
Yeah, that has
policy.
nothing to do with Wilson. I try to put that out there to make sure no one's getting upset at the school district because it literally has nothing to do with them. They're just following the District 3 rules. So they're using hometown ticketing, which Wilson is also using.
Right.
I don't believe it isn't the only way to do it, though, at Wilson. For District 3 events, not just football, any District 3 event, you must purchase ahead of time through hometown ticketing. They have an app, they have a website. Just make sure when you're going to buy tickets, you're buying it through PIAA District 3 and not trying to buy through Wilson. Wilson is not selling these tickets, District 3 is, so you have to buy on the District 3 site on hometown ticketing.
And it is frustrating that on the District 3 site, they have it, but not as a link. There's the URL that you have to copy and paste. Why they do that?
I don't know.
Actually, I have lots of thoughts.
There's lots of thoughts about
again,
that. Yes.
Those are also discussions for after the show.
Right. Off-air discussions. So, Instashine Car Wash Field this Friday, 7 o'clock. PIAA District 3 6A District 3 semifinals.
For a season that was only scheduled to have 4 home games, to get 6 is pretty awesome.
That's pretty sweet. And for a team that was only thought to maybe win 6 games, to already have 10 is even better. And the quest for 11 and a trip to the district championship game, first for Wilson since 2021. That's what's on the line on Friday. Justin and I want to be back here in a good mood on November 17th, talking about a matchup with either Manheim Township or Harrisburg.
I want more player interviews next week.
Right. I want to talk to the coaches and the players. Let's make that happen. Let's come out and shut down Central York and set up either a rematch with Manheim Township, or maybe we can get that Harrisburg monkey off our back. It's been a while since we came out on top versus the Cougars. I think probably 2015.
A long
possibly.
time.
Yeah.
Long time.
It's been a while since we beat Harrisburg. So take care of business against Central York, and then we can talk more about a potential District 3 championship game against either the Blue Streaks or the Cougars. Justin, anything else you want to add to episode 16 of season 10?
No, it was great. Like you said, there's guys all over the place stepping up. That's what it's going to take. You're going to need to. We talked about this back in September. When we hit some bumps in the road, and look, you don't want to peak in September, and honestly, we don't want to have peaked last week. Now, keep it rolling. get better, improve, be ready to go, because Central York's going to be ready. They're going to be ready to go. So come out, follow the game plan, do your job, and the rest will take care of itself.
Absolutely. So the players have been focused. The coaching staff has done a phenomenal job offensively, defensively, and special teams of getting the guys where they need to be. Everyone seems to be healthy and ready to go.
Yeah.
And, every game is do or die. This could be the last game you play. So it's time to put it all on the line and hopefully come out on top.
Yeah.
And play for that district championship, which Wilson has only won one in 6A since that happened, and it was way back in that first year in 2016. So hopefully the Bulldogs can continue and we get a few more games. Maybe we get to 20 episodes in season 10.
Would love it.
Man, that'd be fantastic. So, all right, I think that's it for us on the Bulldog Hour this week. Like I said, we'll be back in 1 week, Sunday, November 17th, 6:30 start. All the places you can normally find us. Be sure to check out the website, www.bulldoghour.com, and make sure you like, subscribe, follow us across social media, both Justin and myself, the show, and the football accounts. Check out Bulldog Hour or Wilson Bulldogs and Wilson Bulldogs football. Subscribing on YouTube would be awesome so that we can just keep racking up things, and it allows us to do more and get to more people. Right. So definitely check us out there. And, of course, we're all across the podcast sphere on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, as well as all of our archive can be found on SoundCloud.com under JMNJR Radio. That's it for us. We'll be back next week. Until next time, for Justin Raffauf and the entire Wilson football team, my name is Joe Mays. Thanks for being with us. And remember, go Bulldogs.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Bulldog Hour. Want more Wilson football? Follow the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud. Or visit www.bulldoghour.com. The Bulldog Hour is a featured program on jmnjrradio.com.